So I want to talk a little bit more about how I found keto, how it helped, how it changed everything for me, why keto changed everything for me, and how you can implement it into your life, where to start, kind of why it works, etc. So just an overview of my whole story with keto. So my history of mental illness, I mean, getting sick, right? So in 2016, when I was 19, I had a psychotic episode. I was hospitalized for manic psychosis. I had delusions. I was locked up in the hospital. They forced a medication in my butt and locked me in the hospital for 2 weeks, right? 5250. So I had full-blown delusions. Why did it happen? I mean, it was lifestyle. It was smoking weed, having all these carbs, not taking care of my health, not sleeping well, and a lot of stress that came from the course load when I was a freshman in college. So that's why it happened, and I ended up in the psych ward, and those 2 years were hell. Those 2 years from 2016 to 2018 were hell when I was hospitalized 4 times for manic psychosis, each time for 2 weeks. I was in and out of more severely delusional states, but never quite sane, never quite normal, never quite myself. And I was in dozens of treatment centers, and I saw dozens of healthcare professionals, tried all these medications, and nothing worked. Nothing worked for me. So, when I got out and I had a moment of clarity where I realized, wow, something is going wrong here, I started doing everything I could possibly do to try to heal myself. So I started exercising regularly, tracking my sleep. I remember how I had this big spreadsheet where I would literally track when I went to bed, when I woke up, how much sleep I got, when I put on my blue light blocking glasses, what kind of exercise I did that day. I remember I was swimming a lot at the time, so I would literally track, like I swam 2,000 yards, I swam 2,400 yards that day, and I tracked everything. And I was doing therapy also at the time. I was taking medication as prescribed, but nothing worked. I was still having a very, very hard time controlling my bipolar disorder. And the trend that would happen was that I would start to sleep less and less. So I would wake up at 7, and then I wake up at 6 a.m., then wake up at 5:30 a.m., and I would have a lot of energy. And I would track this, so I knew that something was happening and things weren't going well, and I was dipping into a manic episode, but I didn't know how to stop it other than to take more olanzapine, which is an antipsychotic medication. So I would just have to take more olanzapine, and I would take 10, 15, 20 grams just to bring myself back to normal mood. I couldn't control it. I was doing everything I could. I was doing everything they told me. I was doing everything correctly, even sleep and exercise, and trying to nail these parts of my health routine, but I was just still sick. My mom found keto in 2020 during the pandemic. She found Dr. Chris Palmer. I started working with Chris in 2021. So we had this whole team. We started figuring out how we're going to do this keto thing. I was working with Denise Palmer, who's a dietitian. We figured out the macros. We figured out, we measured out all the meals. We figured out we're going to do this scientifically. And I went on the ketogenic diet, and it completely changed my life. It completely changed my life and my illness. So, we're starting to understand mental illness as metabolic brain disorder and metabolic dysfunction manifesting as mental illness. So this is a really real change in paradigm from the whole chemical imbalance in the brain model, or even worse, the psychological model where this is childhood trauma that manifests as mental illness and bipolar and schizophrenia and depression. And maybe there's some element of truth to that. I don't know. But the way we're starting to understand mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, and even many other things is as metabolic dysfunction that shows up in your brain as mental illness. So people who are obese, have comorbidities, have much higher rates of mental illness, right? Why is that? They're metabolically unhealthy, and then that shows up as mental illness. There's a reason why people with diabetes tend to have more bipolar, schizophrenia, et cetera, all these things. So really what this comes down to is using ketogenic diet to treat this metabolic illness. And then as a result of fixing that metabolism, the mitochondria in the cells, people's brains get well. So I did that. I went on keto. I went on a ketogenic diet, and suddenly I'm eating very, very low carbohydrate diet, right? Eating 30 grams of carbs per day, moderate protein. So for me, that's like 130 grams of protein at 210 pounds. And then very, very high fat. So lots and lots of fat, macadamia nuts, olive oil, MCT oil, fatty steaks, fatty fish, avocados, etc., things like that. So I went on this diet. My brain started using ketones for fuel rather than glucose, and everything changed. Everything changed. I was cured. I don't have a better explanation than that. And I think after 3 or 4 months, when I was sleeping well and I wasn't having manic episodes, and I went through March, the month of March, when the days are becoming longer very rapidly, a lot of people have manic episodes in March, and I went through 5 milligrams of olanzapine, just so stable, so stable. It's almost like this disappeared. And, it was tricky because when I went into ketosis for the first time, we had to watch because people can have some hypomania during those first couple weeks. Be careful. But, Dr. Palmer actually suggests that that's a good sign that something is happening metabolically when people go into ketosis. But it was just 6 months. By 6 months, 9 months, hardcore keto, tracking my ketones, and everything changed. So I really got well. So for people who want to do this, the things I would suggest, number one, track ketones. So when I went into the state of ketosis for the first time, I had the ketone tracker, the blood tracker. So I would prick my finger and I would track that twice a day. And they make these like Keto Mojo. You can buy these on Amazon. So I would prick my finger and take my ketones in the morning and take my ketones in the evening. And that was just to make sure my ketones were above 1.5, 2.0 millimoles, just to make sure I was getting into ketosis and to start to get a feel for like what kind of things threw me out of ketosis. Now I have the CKM, the continuous ketone monitor, so I've been watching that a lot recently. So that was number one, tracking ketones and watching them carefully. Number two, keeping up physical exercise, specifically aerobic exercise. So especially things like running, elliptical, swimming, walking are things that really will put my body into ketosis very quickly. Recently using the CKM, I've noticed that my ketones go way down first thing in the morning, which I think is pretty normal. Lots of people experience this, but I started to notice this. And one of the things that really helps in the morning is getting some MCT oil or tahini butter. That's really good. And getting out for a run or walk or cardio first thing in the morning just to push the ketones up. So yeah, track ketones, aerobic exercise, and then eating enough fat and meal prepping. This can be done cheaply. Keto can be done cheaply. Anyone who will suggest that keto can't be done cheaply, and if that's the situation, like cheap meats, oils, nuts, these are like keto on a budget can be done. And that, Metabolic Mind, we've done a video of that. Brett's done a video of that where he shows Dr. Schur like how to do keto on a budget. So having all the foods in place, having all the foods at the house, like there has to, you don't want to be in a situation where you need to have food. You need to have some high fat food like a fat bomb or a snack like that, and you don't have in the house. So that's the third thing I would suggest is like meal prepping or just buying these high fat foods in bulk. So you always at the house, you have like a snack. And then when you go out, when you're like going out to events or going out to dinners where people are eating, like always having a high-fat snack you can have, or like, you can get something on the menu like a steak or a salad with olive oil or something like that. But always having food to eat is gonna be really helpful. Number four, committing to the diet. So a lot of people will do this half-heartedly and do keto and then cheat 2 weeks in and like eat a lot of carbs and then they go out of ketosis. No, you can't do that. Body needs time to heal. Your body needs time to heal. So I'd recommend like commit to this for 6 to 12 months. Like if you want to see the benefits of keto for mental illness, like it might take 6 to 12 months of committing to the diet, being in ketosis all the time. We've talked to lots of people on the podcast, Ian and I on Bipolar Cast, of people who have done this and then they have carbs and they binge and like it throws their mood off. And we don't know anything about this. We don't know much about keto for bipolar, but specifically like how to implement it yet. But I could tell you that for people who tend to cheat on the diet at the beginning and go 2 weeks on and then binge, things don't go as well. So your body needs time to heal and just consistently be in ketosis and have the ketones up 1.5, 2.0 millimolar. So that's critical. So that's the fourth piece that I would suggest, committing to the diet and then having the warrior's mindset of like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit to this and see what happens. And, if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't committed to the diet and followed through with it for 6 to 12 months, like who knows? I mean, we know this doesn't necessarily work for everyone who has a mental illness, but for many, many people, this can be a game changer. Your doctor's going to want to push back. Your doctor's might tell you like, why are you doing this? Brett, Dr. Schur has a lot of videos of Metabolic Mind about how to talk to your doctor about keto, how to taper meds on keto. That's a whole other story, but those are some of the things I would suggest. If you're just getting into that, I can make more videos going forward about the specifics about each of these and my thinking around it. But this is an early YouTube channel, so I just want to get some content out and tell people how I did this. So I think I will sign off there. Thanks, everyone.